Hey guys, I'm Urizi. This story is all about what if Sakura's character was rewritten. A rewrite of Sakura, in which a blunt and eccentric OC is placed into the body of Sakura Haruno at the start of the series. Nothing at all could possibly go wrong. Before we proceed with the story, please like and subscribe to this channel if you liked the video, and don't forget to check the description for the other works of the author if you liked the story. Let's start. Chapter 24, Repeat. I held Yuki's hand as we toured Konoha. I took her to my favorite places to eat, and a training ground I frequented. I even brought her over to the hospital where I worked and showed her my office and a couple pictures of some gnarly surgeries which she looked at with wide eyes before taking her back to her hotel. Unsurprisingly, her guards were quite displeased with her impromptu visitation, but she waved away their concerns and asked me to visit her while she was here. On the way back, I couldn't help but shoot Kakuzu a wink nudge nudge. He blatantly ignored me, but I could tell he was getting flushed under all my teasing. "Come on, old man, just admit you got a thing for her." "I got a thing for her," I tried to coax out of him as I hopped across the rooftops. The gorgeous night air pleasantly blew through my hair. Konoha always had such amazing weather, and that day was no different. There wasn't even a cloud in the sky above us, so we could admire the twinkling stars and the big full moon. "I do not have a thing for anyone," he grouched. He and Sasori were a little harder to see at night since they were normally transparent. I wished I could get a better view of his face. "She's almost 30, so the age difference isn't so bad," Sasori hesitantly added, grimacing as he did so. Kakuzu glared hotly at him for that, and the puppet master sneered back in return. "Anyone with a brain can read your reactions. Admitting it will save us both a headache from Sakura's inane ramblings." "He's right," I agreed, wondering how great it'd be if I could double jump mid-air like a video game character. "I will ramble inanely." Kakuzu looked like he swallowed glass shards as he considered his options. "I do not dislike her, but I have no intentions of ever pursuing a relationship." "Have you considered joining a harem?" "I am never joining your deranged group of idiots," hissed Kakuzu. "I wasn't asking about mine," I insisted. "I was merely asking in general." "Never." "Geez. Okay. I'll get you to join at a later date." Sasori rubbed at his face. "If I say I'll join your wretched club, would you release me?" "Yes," I answered, perfectly serious. "Are you saying you'll join?" Sasori's lip curled back in distaste. "You have not broken me yet," I added with a chirp and a smile. "I know how Stockholm Syndrome works, and I'm not against using it against psychopaths." "You are a genuine monster." "A little bit," I agreed. "Certainly desensitized." A couple days later. "Oh," I said out loud to myself as a flood of information popped up in my head. I was in my kitchen with Hinata and Naruto making a cake. My Akatsuki boy toys were watching a movie in the living room when it happened. Hinata paused in chopping up the chocolate bar, while Naruto slowed down in his whisking for the meringue. Worriedly, Hinata asked me, "What's wrong, S.A.-chan?" That sounded like an ominous O. Irami, the goggle gods have blessed me with more knowledge, I settled on, still processing what the gosh darn dilly-dally heck just happened. I placed the liquid part of the cake batter down and rubbed at my eyes. But when I lowered my hands, I let out a startled shout when I realized I was definitely not in my kitchen anymore. Darkness surrounded me, a black void where nothing but the sound of the ocean could be heard. I stumbled back, my slippers sliding into something cold and wet. An episode, I thought, my eyes wide as I took everything in. But no, I've never had episodes like this before. Reaching up to rub my eyes, I froze when I recognized the hands did not belong to me. I stared down at the tiny hands that were too pale to be mine. My eyes roamed down to look at the rest of my body, but I found it also didn't belong to me. It had to have belonged to a child, someone physically younger than me and undeveloped. Okay, sure. Taking a deep breath in, I let it out slowly before glancing around in the darkness. Yeesh. This place gives me the heebies. Having nothing else really to do, I picked a random direction and started walking. As I traversed, the water at my feet began to rise. I couldn't find my own chakra to be able to walk on top of it, so I had to wade through. It was bitterly cold, and I couldn't see the bottom of it, Only blackness. I wasn't sure how long I walked. Maybe only a few seconds. Maybe hours. But as I walked, and the water rose, bits of light started to sparkle above me. It reflected on the water, creating this beautiful starry night sky effect. Despite how creepy this place was, I thought it looked rather pretty once the lights showed up. One light in particular began to shine exceptionally bright, descending to me. As it neared, it took the shape of a pale butterfly with bits of snow and ice dusting off each wing flap. Welcome home. Thank you, Shiori, the words spilled out in a voice too gentle and soft to my own. Are you going to try again? I have to, I told her, a vile, bitter taste burning my mouth. I cannot stay here, no matter how much I wish otherwise. I raised my hand and Shiori landed gracefully on my outstretched finger. They say we are gifts that life creates for death, and death keeps us all. My eyes squeezed tightly shut, not wanting to hear this again. Then why won't death keep me? I'm tired, Shiori. I'm so tired. I know, my dearest friend. I know. I'm afraid I'll come back broken again. I never want to have another life like Na. I dropped down into the dark water, letting go once again. Third-person POV. What's wrong, SA-chan? That sounded like an ominous "oh," Hinata said, setting down the knife she was using. The pink's face slowly paled, a dullness entering her eyes. She stammered out, starting to sway, Irami the goggle gods have blessed me with more knowledge. Sakura's knees buckled, and she abruptly collapsed onto the floor. Hinata had already grabbed her by the time Naruto set down the meringue and dove to her. Sakura! Yelped Naruto, grabbing her shoulder. Hinata placed a hand over her forehead, her eyes narrowing in concern as a frown tugged down on her face. She's freezing, Hinata whispered, looking up at Naruto. Sakura-chan. Sakura-chan. Their friend remained unresponsive, staring blankly ahead. She was limp in Hinata's arms, her skin becoming paler by the second. Naruto touched her arm, and to his surprise there were no goosebumps. Cold, but no goosebumps. Naruto thought. That's not normal, right? An unsettling feeling knotted in the pit of his stomach. We should get her to Tsunade. Hinata nodded firmly in agreement, adjusting her grip on Sakura to pick her up. She winced. She's colder than ice. Sakura jerked, gasping at air, and starting to cough. Color rushed back into her face, and she leaned over from the force of her coughing fit. Naruto and Hinata rubbed at her back, uncertain how to proceed. Shudders ran through Sakura, goosebumps covering every inch of her skin. She shivered, and Naruto immediately pulled her into his arms to help warm her up. Hinata rubbed at her hands. Sakura-chan. I am sorry, Sakura gasped out, tears spilling over her eyes. I'm so sorry. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was just so tired. A choked sob escaped her, and she buried her face in her hands as she began to cry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. She curled into Naruto, weeping over things neither of her friends could understand. Hinata moved closer, rubbing her hand up and down Sakura's back while Naruto continued to hold her in a vain attempt to show comfort. She must have cried for an hour before her sobs and hiccups died down, and only small whimpers and sniffling remained. Her friends stayed beside her, offering support and solidarity. Hinata temporarily left to grab boxes of tissues to wipe at the running snot, and dab at Sakura's puffy red eyes. With the last of the tissues, Sakura blew her nose and offered her friends a wobbly, weak smile. Hi. Hello, Hinata said gently, brushing back some of Sakura's hair. Why don't you lay down for a bit? I don't want to dream again, she whispered, her voice cracking. Just get me some ibuprofen and water, please. Naruto and Hinata exchanged worried looks, but Hinata eventually obliged and fetched what was requested. Sakura swallowed several pills in hopes of preventing the oncoming headache that always accompanied such a heavy cry session. Once finished, she perked up and said, "Gosh, what a trip. But we've got some work to do, so let's finish up this cake and then head on out." No. You don't get to Naruto gestured to Sakura. You don't get to do that and move on. Sakura scratched the back of her head. Well. The only way I can really describe to you both is that, the goggle gods gave me some information that kind of upset me. What did you see? Hinata asked. Sakura stilled for a moment, her brow furrowing as a dark look crossed over her face. I think, maybe. Genocide run. But it's okay, I'm on the pacifist route now. I don't know, I don't remember a whole lot now. It comes in waves, you know? I know the broad strokes, but the more time passes the harder it is to see even that much. She took a deep breath and let it out slowly. It's okay now, she said, more to herself than to Naruto or Hinata. I'm not broken. I'm me again. And we have to save a couple dummy Uchihas. Naruto's eyes widened. Sasuke. Time to bring Princess Duckbutt home, honey. It hardly took any time at all to tell Tsunade that the goggle gods told me it was time to bring Sasuke home. I'm fine with issuing the mission, Tsunade said, her gaze flickering over to Naruto. But we haven't finished dealing with some root rot. That's fine, I said, words popping out. Sasuke needs the confrontation, anyway. The disease left behind will be something we can more easily handle when the heart of it gone. Tsunade drummed her fingers on her desk. I see. You have quite literally never been wrong before, so I'll trust you on this. Gather the team and bring home our boys. I saluted her. Hina-chan, why don't you grab Team 8, and Naruto, grab the rest of Team 7. What about you? Naruto asked me. I kissed his cheek. Oh, honey. I've got to move ahead. A clone will be with you guys instead. Ta-ta. I moved with speed that would impress even Lee, rapidly sprinting home to grab some essential supplies before bolting out of Konoha. I left behind several rock clones that would move with Naruto's group, but I knew I had to move ahead of everyone to beat Tobito. What did you mean by genocide run? Sasori asked after I had been sprinting through the forest for over an hour. I think I have a higher kill count than all of the Akatsuki members combined, twice over. What? Kakuzu repeated in blatant disbelief. How can you even proclaim such a thing? Insanity has a limit. I held up my finger. 1. Insanity has no limit. Another finger. And 2. You don't want to know. I don't even want to know. You know what? This would be a great time for Deidara to show up. Goggle gods must have blessed me because guess what I got? If you guessed a boom boom explode boy, you guessed right. Deidara popped up in front of me, and he let out a shout as soon as he saw Sasori and Kakuzu. AHH. What are you two doing here? Being driven into insanity, they said with hanging heads. Ah, come on, it's not that bad, I whined. I'm saving your lives. Death would have been kinder, grouched Sasori. Being trapped with you is the cruelest form of torture I have ever come across, Kakuzu snapped. You two are being dramatic, I dismissed. Deidara looked back and forth between the trio. Welcome to hell, brat. You are bound to this fiendish creature where she will subject you to endless madness and chaos, Sasori said, gesturing toward me. Steal the last bit of nerves you have, and be prepared for unspeakable things. Okay, now you're just being hurtful, I said with a sniff. If you're gonna keep being so mean, we won't test the vervi poison when I get back. It's not that bad, Kakuzu put in. Really, she's tolerable once you get used to her, Sasori added. Deidara rubbed his face. Am I dead? Not yet, darling, I said with a big grin. Not yet. While I was certain my clone was having all sorts of fun with the main group, I had an unremarkable time sprinting through the country to get to Itachi before Duckbutt. Sasori and Kakuzu explained the gist of the situation to Deidara, and Deidara immediately asked me what kind of cake would be made in his honor. Obviously a lemon cake with pop rocks and ice cream in the center. Like, how else to describe such a cool fella like him? He nodded approvingly. It took, 12-ish hours to reach the destination. I was a bit out of breath, but not too bad. I got my second wind as soon as I sensed the delightful chakra of my favorite swordsman ever. Hey, baby, I said with a wink, happily skipping over to Kisame once I broke through the trees and entered the clearing. I bet a certain little pretty boy said I could pass through. That he did, Kisame said with a huge toothy grin. How's my favorite little fangirl doing? Perfect, now that I get to see you, I flirted, skipping right over to him to hug him around the waist. And after years of bribing him with cake, goodies, and other fun stuff, he patted my back. I felt the blood rush up to my face and I had to actively struggle not to faint from sheer joy. I couldn't resist nuzzling my face into his chest, and he let me. I smell something delicious in your backpack. You would be correct, I said, reluctantly pulling back to reach into my backpack and give Kisame his apology cake for kidnapping Itachi. He excitedly opened it up, but then blinked in surprise when he realized I wrote, "Sorry for taking Itachi." He raised an eyebrow at me. You're going to kidnap Itachi now? I won't kidnap him, he'll willingly come with me due to my sheer seductive prowess. Kisame scratched his cheek. You can come with me, too. I promise to bake for you every day, I purred. That is very tempting, Kisame told me seriously, but I'll have to pass for now. But, darling. But I might take you up on it later, he finished and then winked at me. Oh my goggle gods, thank you for this blessing. I swooned, fanning myself. My stars. Goggle gods be praised for blessing my eyes with such a sight. He laughed, his whole body shaking as he patted me on the head. Good luck trying to seduce Itachi, ha ha ha, you're gonna need it, kiddo. I don't need luck. I have main protagonist pink hair. He laughed again, and I bowed before taking my leave. I skipped right into the old, decrepit Uchiha fortress and gave Itachi a cheerful wave. Hi, pumpkin. Hello, Sakura-san. Just Sakura, please. He inclined his head politely. So, I've been training my chakra resistance and all that fun stuff, so I'm ready for part 2 to that fun red land, I said with a chirp in my tone. Come on inside, let me show you something neat. I have to admit I've been meaning to inquire further about your claims, Itachi said. Are you prepared? As ever. Go as deep as you can. As our eyes met, the world around me melted away into red and black. I fell into a void. It was a bit of an odd sensation. I could feel Itachi there beside me, but then he and I went our separate ways. He stopped falling, whereas I didn't until I landed in knee-deep dark water. I could hear waves in the distance, and this world was not unlike the world I visited in my latest vision. I drifted further in, and quietly called out, Inner? Are you here? Sort of, she said, and I saw her. Sakura. From the waist up it was Sakura, although a bit of her head and all of her lower body was deteriorating into white, wispy, smoke. She smiled at me, and I felt a pang in my heart. What's wrong with you? I'm getting ready to go to leave. I'll join the others soon. Others? What do you mean leave? Her gaze was soft. Lily. I'm so sorry I couldn't tell you. I wish I could, when I found out, but I had no energy left. I'm more there than here now. I don't understand. I furrowed my brow, a cold knot forming in my gut. You've died so many times, she said softly, reaching out a hand to me. I grasped it immediately, disliking how cold she felt. We have died so many times. I carry the memories of all our mistakes, and I tried to keep them from you. We chose long ago, after so many times grieving, that it's best to start a life fresh. Sometimes we can't succeed in that, though. All of our mistakes, all of our deaths we've lived so many times, my friend. My brow furrowed and my chest tightened. I don't. She hushed me. It's okay. For some reason we've been stuck in this lifetime. We died against Zabuza at first, you know. Woke up right at the start of team assignments. We died a lot. We couldn't move on, though, because we love them too much. Our spiritual energy had built up enough to anchor ourselves to a single day in a single lifetime. That energy is nearly depleted, though, and this is the last run. I died? Against Zabuza and Haku. Yes, she murmured. And many times during the war, or invasions. You didn't think it strange that you awakened the seal so soon, or how you were able to perform heart surgery first try. I did find it strange, I admitted. She smiled. It's hard to keep memories. Now always thinks it's best to start fresh. Wah. Sakura cupped my cheek. This is my goodbye. I'll give my love to Ka-chan and To-chan. My eyes widened and my breath hitched. What? No. You can't. It's okay, she soothed. I'm always with you. We're always with you. Sakura rapidly dissolved, and I let out a cry of surprise when she left. But I was not left alone. 4 others stood around me. A young girl with pale eyes and hair, and a white butterfly on her head. Her gaze was soft and tender. A young woman with brown hair, tan skin, and vibrant green eyes. There was love in her eyes. Another young woman with dark blonde hair, a calm demeanor, and trademark whiskers. She smiled at me. And another beautiful woman, with one burning orange eye, and one cherry non, and a dark demeanor. She cocked her head at me. It's funny, the one with green eyes Mia, I thought, uncertain how I knew that. It was only one mistake at first. One life there. But, Emiwao hummed, when we try to move on, try to start again in our home world, we find them again. We love them, now said. We love them more than we care about peace. We want them to be happy above all else, Nazuka murmured. We would sacrifice anything for them, now agreed. Some friendships last more than a single lifetime, Emiwao said. Love isn't something that goes away, even in death. Mia smiled at me. Please look out for my Obi. He's a real sweetie at heart, I promise. Now laughed. And our family. Sissy is so dear to me. Please take care of Kurama and Naruto, Emiwao asked of me. Kurama's my dearest friend, Tsundere attitude aside. I will, I promised, uncertain what else to say. Now smiled at me, and the butterfly on her head flapped its wings. I have to go now. Yagura and Madara-san are not patient men. Wait, what? Madara? As in the Madara that I swear by his sexiness. He didn't let me die right away, was all she said in response. It's okay, he's an old soul, too. He's a sassy, petulant, brat is what he is, Nazuka snorted, but there an odd tenderness in her voice when she spoke about him. Please, you love him anyway, Mia immediately dismissed. That being said, I have grandchildren to watch over. Take care, Lily. Oh, and tell this Obi that a nigiri is not a meal, and I don't give a flying hoot if that's the only thing he knows how to make. Okay, I agreed, wondering what kind of reaction Obito would have to that. Now and Mia both smiled at me again, and then they were gone from the void. Nazuka glanced over at me and smirked. There's a precious Tessin buried 6 kilometers south of Konoha, underneath a triple-layered genjutsu, and a tree with blue leaves. I would hate to see it deteriorate any more than it already has. Treasure it for Madara Yui, and myself. I nodded my head. Emiwao folded her arms and narrowed her eyes. Kurama is my most precious person. Him and all the other Biju deserve to be free and live in peace. Of course, I agreed. There's an island off the coast of Wave. It's too far off to build a bridge, and too dangerous to go by boat. It's big enough for all of them, though. Make it safe for them. So wait, how? She rolled her eyes and I had a sudden rush of images forced into my RMI head. They looked like complex Fuinjutsu arrays, but I hadn't studied enough in Fuinjutsu properly say what the heck they did. I would transcribe them all for Naruto to look at later. Tell him Emiwao hesitated. Tell him there's someone who still loves him, and when he's ready to disperse, I'll be waiting with Gon and Killua. Disperse. What? Can Biju die? Wait, who? But she was gone. I stared at the woman with burning orange eyes, and she stared back at me. Do you regret it? I asked her. She cocked her head, a glint of madness in her gaze as a cruel smile stretched over her lips. Oh, blessed, you know where your love comes from, don't you? Now loved her family so much, it carries over in all our lives, but her desperate desire to save Obito created Mia's connection to Obito. She had no chakra network, yet Shiori, and now still kept calling out to Obito to save him. Those two looped a few more times, never remembering until the end, and then on came a sweet little child with cancer growing all over her because spiritual chakra kept trying to force its way inside of her. Emiwao is born, confused, angry, and oddly tired. She doesn't remember the loops, but she knows she's frustrated and scared. Then along comes the life before me. A different timeline on a chakraless world, and all those memories jumbled up inside the head of a man who couldn't understand. Crazy, they called me, and cursed is what they howled as they spilled my brains out on the operating table trying to understand what made me so terribly, terribly sad. But as Nazca, can you guess what I remembered? Some of your life as Lily, some of my life as that poor man, and then bits and pieces of things I couldn't never understand. But, oh, was I tired. I mention only a few lives, but you already know we've been through this 100 times by this point. You carry now in Miwao's love for their family, Mia's affection to Obito, and my devotion to Kisame and Madara who stood by me through that hell. Her smile stretched even wider. You call it your love, but it's ours. You are the blessed, the one who will get to carry this burden until the end of time. Live, die, repeat. Remember, forget, repeat. Love, lose, repeat. She sauntered over to me, this beautiful and downright vicious woman. She cupped my face in her hands, leaned down and whispered, "You ask me if I regret it. Let me ask you this now, does it even matter? Do you even matter? Does this effort mean anything? You try to save them, and for what? For nothing. It will reset when you die, and then either you get reborn or I get reborn." She kissed my nose, eyes dancing with malice. "Ask me again if I regret it when you get to stand over their bodies and know that nothing ever matters." She left in wisps of black smoke that tasted like rotting corpses and burning trees. I was alone in the darkness actually, no. I was never really alone anymore, was I? Yes, I said to myself. It does matter. It matters because all of you are me. You all love, and that love is what I feel. It matters because how we feel means something. You wouldn't have been so angry, so hurt, and frustrated over our failures if you didn't care, if it didn't matter. I don't know why things are happening the way they are, or if we will ever be free from this cycle, but that doesn't mean each cycle is meaningless. It doesn't make our efforts be in vain. It means we get that much more time with them. It means we get to fall in love with them all over again. It means we got a chance, a shot, to make things even better than last time. Our endeavors, our adventures, don't mean nothing. 'Cause we know they mean everything. We know we did everything we could. We know we will always love them. We know what we've done. And we can carry that into our next cycle, and we can learn, grow, and experience love and life all over again. So yes, I finished quietly, it does matter. And I won't let you have your way, Nazca. I know you're hurt. I know you're broken, and angry, but I also know you love them just as fiercely. I held a hand over my chest. I feel your love for them right here. I promise I'll look after them, so why don't you just rest for a bit, okay? I'll take care of everything. There was no response to my monologue in that darkness. But there was no need. I felt them inside of me. Nao's unwavering determination. Mia's fierce love. Miwao's unbreakable will. Nazca's burning conviction. It's okay everyone, I told them, closing my eyes. It's going to be okay. I promise. The sound of the ocean waves lapped against the dark shores. The butterflies of Nao's kaleidoscope twinkled up above us like starlights. Yes, I believed. I'll make it okay. So, how's about you stop your little plan, and come on back to Konoha, I concluded, wringing my hands anxiously together. Right after my confrontation with the Goggle Gods, I made my way over to Itachi. Yes? Yes. He was not just watching my previous life as Lily, though. He was watching Nao's lives, Mia's lives, Miwao's lives, and even Nazca's life. He flipped through the images, examining the outcomes to the canonical storyline. You are desperate for a happy ending, he remarked softly. You believe you need it to break the cycle. I've had plenty of happy endings, I retorted. I don't know what to do to break the cycle. Then why are you trying at all? Why wouldn't I? I still love Itachi pointedly glanced over at Nazuka's story, and I winced. Okay, I plead insanity for that one. I was really tired, fed up, and annoyed, and I didn't understand why entirely, so it just kind of got out of hand. I would have been fine if I hadn't run into Matty Hime so early, though. Perhaps, Itachi allowed, looking over some of the more heinous memories. MN. I cannot argue with the facts. Revealing the truth to Sasuke almost always leads to a better end. Exactly. Itachi sighed. Very well, Lily. I will return to Konoha with you and Sasuke after telling him the truth of the massacre. Woohoo. I would appreciate it if you refrained from trying to grab inappropriate parts of me, though. Ah. How's about a daily hug, then? No. Ah. We hopped out of my mind, and got ready for Sasuke to show up in all his glorious broodiness. Gata Ise waiting in a run-down abandoned fortress was a touch creepy. Did not help that the place was littered with spiders, rats, and other nasties. I got startled by one too many spiders that I ended up forcing myself on Itachi's lap because I was not in the mood to find some gross bugs crawling on me. Thankfully we didn't have to wait long, maybe only 15 minutes before the Uchiha princess himself showed up. Sup duck butt, I greeted, trying to act all nonchalant and like I was not just scared shitless a minute ago by a spider descending the ceiling to land on my nose. Sasuke looked at me. He looked at Itachi. He looked at me sitting on Itachi's lap. The sheer amount of disgust and no was downright delightful. Almost made me forget about my traumatic experience of dealing with spiders in this hellhole. So, I said, trying not to cackle at his expression, you ready to keep your promise to me? I didn't try to kill you already, Sasuke snapped. I never promised not to kill you at the second meeting. Well, not that promise, but I'd appreciate it if you refrained from trying to kill me for now. I meant the promise that you'd listen to what I had to say before you fought Itachi. What? Are you seriously going to try and persuade me to spare that monster because he's part of your damn harem now? Sasuke viciously demanded, his cheeks growing more flush with anger. Man, I wish, I thought, but shook my head. No. It's about the truth of the Uchiha massacre. I already know the truth. Itachi slaughtered them. Except, no, he didn't, I corrected. Tobito killed the majority of them and Itachi did clean up. But that's not the point. I meant, do you know why he did so? Sasuke and the Akatsuki gave me a look of sheer disbelief. Tobi. Deidara repeated, incredulous. Are you soft in the head? Yeah. Tobi. Tobi is a mass murderer. Sasori demanded. In what universe are you from? Are you just lying to save Itachi? Kakuzu inquired. But why tell such a blatant lie that no one could possibly believe? Who? Sasuke asked, his eyes narrowing. I mean, come on, that much is pretty obvious, I said dismissively, ignoring my Akatsuki peanut gallery. Itachi was good, but he wasn't that good. There were just as many elite members in the Uchiha clan, of course he had help. But that's not important here. I would beg to differ. Sasuke coldly cut in. Itachi, your brother isn't listening to me, I said, looking over at the beautiful man. Give him the scroll Tsunade gave you, he helpfully suggested. Oh, yeah. I pulled out my backpack and tossed Sasuke the verified scroll Tsunade set up to confirm all the events, and to officially invite Itachi back to Konoha. Carefully, Sasuke unrolled the scroll, his eyes flickering across the page. Word by word, he grew paler and his expression twisting between anger and horror. Silence fell between us, his face conflicted with so many emotions. You're lying. I'm not, and you know it. Why do you think Itachi really left you alive? To devote yourself to kill him? What kind of serial killer wants to die? And last I checked, Itachi wasn't a diehard masochist like Hidan. You know the real reason he spared you. You remember the reason. You remember his face as he left you there. You buried it so far into you, suppressed it so much you wouldn't give it pause. But think now. Think clearly. Remember. Remember his face. Remember the tension. Remember, Sasuke. Because you know it's true. Itachi didn't spare you on a whim. He spared you because your life means so much to him. He loves you. You're lying. Think, Sasuke, I repeated, my tone gentle like Mia's. Think clearly for just one moment and listen to me. I know this hurts. I know this is horrible, and I know it would be so much easier to dismiss it, but you have to accept this. Think. Do you really think Itachi could have faked his adoration of you for years? Since he was 5 years old? Was there ever a point in your life before that night that you doubted him? Think, Sasuke, please. Sasuke just stared at me, his face morphing into disbelief. You're lying. You have to be. Itachi's the bad guy. Itachi is the bad guy. Little brother, Itachi whispered. So softly, so quietly, I had to strain to hear it. But the raw emotion in that word said everything. Sasuke shook his head, his eyes wild. You're wrong. You're wrong. Kai. 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 Just as Sasuke was about to pull out his own katana and jab himself, Itachi and I both lunged forward. My arms wrapped around him and Itachi stood above him, pulling his katana away. Sasuke shook his head. You're wrong. You're wrong, you're wrong, you're wrong. I'm sorry, I whispered, trying to soothe the emotionally distraught boy. I'm so sorry. I'm not lying to you, Sasuke. I swear I'm not. I'm so sorry. Sasuke just shook his head, staring at me with such a horrified look. I felt awful for telling him the truth. I hated that he felt like this. I hated not being able to help him anymore at the moment. What was I to do? What could I do? Sasuke shook his head, his grip lessening on the scroll as he dropped it and fell to his knees. This is a mistake. My parents. It's not, I said as gently as I could. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Sasuke was stiff in my arms, as if he just didn't know how to be held. And maybe he didn't. Maybe he was just too used to being alone. Itachi knelt in front of Sasuke, his voice soft. I am so sorry. Finally, Sasuke's eyes dragged up to meet Itachi's. By order of the elders and the forced upon order of the third Hokage, I murmured flatly, my voice taking an apathetic tone to it. Uchiha Itachi is hereby ordered to eliminate the entire Uchiha clan, as the clan has been accused of holding a coup against Konoha. To prevent a civil war inside of Konoha, Itachi is tasked with eliminating his entire family. Deidara sucked in a sharp breath. Through the corner of my eye I could see both Sasori and Kakuzu were wide-eyed. Is it true? He whispered, still staring at Itachi. At Itachi's silence, his voice grew more frantic. Is it true? Itachi lowered his head. Yes. They will pay, Sasuke whispered. They will. I promise you, if you come back with me you will have your revenge, I agreed. I know this is a terrible shock to you, Sasuke. Hesitantly I held him a bit closer. Just enough to let him know that I was here for him, and that I would not be leaving him anytime soon. I had a feeling he needed this, somehow. Even if he wouldn't admit it or show it. I cleared my throat and glanced back at Itachi before looking back at Sasuke. I know you want to kill Danzo, and I promise you that you will get your chance so long as you come back with me. How? Sasuke demanded. Danzo has been breaking the laws of Konoha for years to come. Tsunade-sama and many others have been working hard these past few years to gather enough evidence and destroy his legacy before he could take action, though. If you and Itachi return now, we can put an end to it once and for all. An end to him. I grinned and looked back at Sasuke. So what do you say? Wanna come back with your big brother and kick some Danzo ass? Sasuke gave a dark smile. I never thought I would return to that place. Especially beside my brother. However, I said, holding up a hand. I grinned. Okay. Phew, that's a load off my chest. Come on you two, let's head back and grab Duck Butt's team. Then we can find my team and head on home. Home, Itachi murmured. Home, Sasuke echoed. The three of us merrily I was merry while the other two were subdued made our way back to the glorious Kisame. But to my horror Suijutsu was actually trying to attack my idol. Since I simply couldn't allow that to happen, I abruptly threw myself at Suijitsu, kicking him hard enough in the face to daze him while I snarled, "Don't you dare touch Kisame-sama." "Welcome back, Sakura." "Itachi," Kisame nodded toward his partner, his lips twitching in amusement at how I was kicking Suijitsu's watery butt. "Kisame," Itachi said quietly, approaching the swordsman with a small frown. "I am afraid I must return to Konoha." Kisame's head snapped around to give me a surprised look. "You actually seduced him?" "Yep," I lied, stopping my strangling of Suijitsu to focus all my attention on Kisame. "But don't worry, I'd choose you in a heartbeat, baby." Kisame didn't look like he knew how to respond to that right away. While he was speechless, Sasuke addressed his team. "I am returning to Konoha with them. You are all welcome to accompany us." "Yeah, man," I cheered. "Karen and Yugo, you two can stay with me. Kimimaro is staying with me." Yugo glanced up hopefully at that. "Truly? If that is the case, I wish to go to Konoha with you." "I never got to join your sleepover," Karen said with a grin. "I suppose I can take you up on that offer now." Suijitsu couldn't respond since I accidentally choked him unconscious, but whatever. "Woohoo! Itachi." Kisame's brow was furrowed as he stared at his partner, drawing the attention back on him. "You know what must be done." Itachi nodded gravely, and he slowly turned back to me. "Sakura, Kisame, and I have a gift for you." "Is it Kisame-sama joining my harem?" I excitedly asked, my eyes shining. "Not yet," Kisame said, pulling out a thin red scroll. He held it out to me and I carefully accepted it. "Inside should be enough money for you to start up a bakery in Konoha." "A bakery?" "Kiddo, with a baking talent like yours, you're wasted as a kunoichi," Kisame politely informed me. Itachi nodded in agreement. "We wanted to arrange the option for you, at least." I was gaping. I mean, like, how else was I supposed to respond? My stomach was filled with warm butterflies, and I felt my cheeks grow warmer than sand under sun. Joyous bubbles filled my heart and I launched myself forward into Kisame's arms. "Thank you. After the war I'll become a baker just for you." "Oh, thanks," Kisame said, patting my back. I sniffled, wiping away at my tears. "This is the greatest day ever." Glad we could, help," Kisame said, giving a helpless look over at Itachi while I sobbed happily in his arms. "Itachi? Wanna take the girl now?" Itachi's lips twitched into a ghost of a smirk. "I think she'd be happier in your arms." "Itachi. I'm not here to judge." "Okay," Sasuke cut in, "we're going now." "Let's go, you depraved woman." As Sasuke began to forcibly drag me away I cried out, "I love you, Kisame-sama." "Thanks, kiddo," Kisame replied, looking incredibly uncomfortable under Itachi's adorable smirk. Bonus, on the way back to the main group. "It's decided," Sasuke said, looking sternly at his brother. "You want my forgiveness for your deception? For what you've done? I know how you will earn it." Itachi stared back evenly at his younger brother. "What would you have me do?" He pointed to an oblivious Sakura who was merrily whistling to herself. "You're going to work for her in that bakery shop for every year you lied to me." Itachi closed his eyes in resignation, while Sakura snapped her head around, an elated expression lighting up her face. "Oh hell yeah. That means Plan Hot Men in cat uniforms is a go." Sasuke tried not to smirk at the pained look on Itachi's face. "Haku. Guess what, my cutie patootie? I'm opening up a bakery shop in Konoha in a few months. Already got myself one hot-ass waiter to ogle it all day. Woohoo. Hope you like the variety of cookies I sent. I mixed in a few surprises, so let me know how you like them. With love and kisses. Sakura." Chapter 25, High Priest Tobito. "Dear Gaara. Wanna dance in the rain with me? Wanna sing horribly off-key with me? Wanna dress up in a cat uniform and work at my bakery? With love. Sakura." Brief interlude with Haku. Haku stared down at Sakura's last letter, where she described about getting to set up her own bakery and already obtaining her first hot waiter. It was no surprise to him that she would start her own bakery. Her baked goods were simply divine, and even though she shared her recipes with him, he could never get them to come out right. He was certain news of her bakery would delight Mei and the others, and he had little doubt the Mizukage would insist that Sakura open up one in Kirigakure. So, Haku was happy for Sakura. And he was also a bit upset. Who was this lucky bastard that already got the job at her bakery so quick? Naruto? Sasuke? Kakashi? Haku was downright envious of them being able to work with the lovely Sakura every day and getting to eat her delicious food whenever. Maybe there's a way to convince her to set up shop in Kirigakure. Haku considered, but dismissed it. Konoha was her home, and it would be selfish to ask her to leave it. Still, maybe there's another way. Third POV, Earth clone of Sakura. Sakura whistled merrily to herself as she led the charge. She knew exactly where she was supposed to go. There was no need for Kakashi to try and track down the original Sakura, nor Sasuke. She followed the path with comfortable steps, her footsteps light enough to not make a single noise like her fellow shinobi. Hinata and Naruto were the closest to her, both choosing to keep up with her. Even though this Sakura was not the original, both friends still felt worried. Both still remembered the odd episode Sakura had just hours before. After them was Kiba, Shino, Sai. Tenzo and Kakashi were in the far back, both to keep an eye on the perimeter and backline, and to keep out of reach of a certain grabby clone. The group traveled through the forest for several hours, making light conversation and teasing one another. It was a relatively nice outing, all things considered. Naruto had absolute faith in Sakura's ability to bring Sasuke back home, so he was relaxed, and consequently everyone else was, too. A not hyped up Naruto did wonders on the atmosphere. Howdy! Chirped a lovely voice that brought a brilliant smile onto Sakura's face. She had to slam her heels into the tree branch so she wouldn't stumble into Tobi Obito, who had literally appeared out of nowhere thanks to his teleportation technique. The tall man loomed over Sakura since she had stopped on the branch he was standing on and greeted her with a cheerful wave. "I know you. And I know you," she said brightly in return, looking up at his orange mask. "Hello, darling." Naruto and Hinata hopped onto the branch beside Sakura and Obito, while the rest of the group formed a loose circle around the Akatsuki member. "Hey, you're Akatsuki, right? Does that mean we're close?" Naruto asked Sakura. "Yeah," she answered with a nod. "Tobito-sama is here to delay us." Tobi's name is Tobi." Obito corrected with false cheer. Sakura bowed lowly. "Forgive me, Tobi-sama, High Priest of the Goggle Gods. I meant you no offense." "Whoa. He's a high priest?" Naruto exclaimed, his eyes wide as he looked up at Obito with plain admiration. Hinata offered Tobi a respectful bow. "It's an honor to meet a high priest." "Ugh," Kiba groaned, rubbing his face. "Which high priest is he?" Sai inquired. "Deadpool-sama." No, this is the high priest who will bestow upon his loyal followers the rainbow stick story." Obito looked down at the twig in his left hand, then he looked back up at Sakura. Unfortunately for Sakura, she couldn't see his face behind his mask, but she'd bet a pretty penny he was staring at her with blatant disbelief. "You know of the rainbow stick story?" he whispered. "I know you hold it," Sakura said. "I can only pray that I have been a loyal enough follower, as High Seer of the Goggle Gods, to learn it." "Then you know about her?" "Yes," Sakura answered, nodding. Obito was about ready to ask another question when Kakashi cleared his throat, his face screwed up in distrust. There was a level of harshness in his tone that he rarely used when he said, "Sorry for interrupting, but I thought I remember only Obito knows the rainbow stick story." Sakura and Obito looked down at Kakashi before looking back at one another. Sakura was honestly impressed Kakashi remembered that far back. "Tobi is Tobi," Obito insisted. "Did she not originally call you Tobito?" Shino inquired. "Why? Tobito has Obito in it, and sounds familiar to Obito. We trust what Sakura-san first called you." "Why? Sakura-san has never been wrong with her declarations in regard to her gods." Sakura scratched her cheek in a sheepish manner as she felt Obito glare at her behind his mask. "I love you." "No story for you," he informed her. Shit. Whoa, 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 Naruto said, holding up his hands while Kakashi and Tenzo started to rub their faces in exasperation. So you're Obito, another dead Uchiha who's not really dead? Of course he faked his death and she knows about it, Kakashi muttered to himself. Why wouldn't my life turn into a soap opera? This is worse than all the C ranks turning into missions to save the world, Tenzo bemoaned. A childhood friend who faked his death turns evil? Goggle gods, how cliché. Did you just use the goggle gods as a swear? Kiba gasped at Tenzo. No, Tenzo lied. Toby is Toby, Obito kept insisting. Take off the mask and we'll believe you, Naruto said with a roll of his eyes. Man, I thought you wanted to be Hokage, what the hell man? Sakura-chan's got like dozens of pictures of you in her room and brags about you almost as much as Kisame-sama and Madara-sama. Hinata made an agreeing noise, but then frowned. Actually, doesn't faking his death, going to the Akatsuki, and causing chaos suit someone who is high priest of the goggle gods? Oh yeah, Naruto said, realizing such. Yeah, that does make sense. Never mind, no judgment here. You keep doing you. For now, Hinata amended. Because if you attack Konoha we will have to stop you. Or if you try to take over the world, Tenzo added. We have a lot of experience saving the world, Kakashi sighed, looking so done. Is this the part where you try to kill us all for knowing the secret? Sakura whispered to Obito, leaning into him. Because if not, I have a harem. I am not joining your harem, Obito cut in. I am not that desperate for a backup plan, you spoiler. I love you, Sakura helpfully told him. And you're welcome to kidnap me anytime. You need my address. Nope, Obito said, disappearing into the tree. Sweet. I'll come with you willingly for the rainbow stick story. Obito waved the rainbow stick as a taunting goodbye before leaving us entirely. Not that Sakura could blame him. There wasn't a lot he could do against everyone here, and a clone who could spout out his weaknesses at the drop of a hat. He wasn't prepared or expecting to get spoiled, and ultimately he didn't care. As long as he got his war, and blah blah blah, he didn't give a rat's ass who knew he was Obito. Well, Sakura said after he left. I think I have to rank him as second best ass in the world. Kakashi sighed again. Can this mission be over? Why so glum? You got to find out your boy crush is alive, Sakura said cheerfully. I don't have a crush on Obito, Kakashi snapped out defensively. Oh, yes you do, Sakura dismissed. It's okay. I can share. If I can share Madara-sama with Hashiwashi, I can share you with Obito. Then Sakura slouched over as she recalled something important. Damn it. No rainbow stick story for me, yet. What's the rainbow stick story? Naruto asked her. A happy one, she answered. It means I don't have to go through the next one alone. The next one. But Sakura only smiled in return and said, come on. Let's go grab everyone and head home. First person POV, Lily, Sakura. We weren't terribly far off from the main group, so it didn't take more than an hour of tree hopping to meet up with everyone. My babies. I cheerfully greeted, my clone popped upon seeing me and I got its memories. No. I was denied the rainbow stick story. The tragedy of rejection made me fall to my knees and let out a mock cry. Hinata gently patted my back in a consoling manner while Naruto grinned at Sasuke and said, welcome back, duck butt. Shut up, idiot, Sasuke returned with all the warmth of a tsundere. You guys know everything. We know enough, Kakashi answered, greeting Itachi with a small nod. Sakura loves spoiling surprises. I know, Itachi answered, glancing over at me with a neutral expression. He probably knew better than most by that point, at least. I let out another soft wail and Sasuke sighed. Stop whining. Think about your Catman Cafe. Itachi cringed while I perked up. Oh yeah. Oh my goggle gods, guys, guess what? What? Naruto asked, brightening up from my infectious smile. Kisame-sama and Itachi saved up some money for me to open up my own bakery. And Sasuke politely persuaded Itachi to work for me there, and I'm going to dress him up in a Catman uniform. Hinata, Sai, and Naruto clapped for me. How kind. Hinata praised. I'm sorry, Kakashi told Itachi, as he and Tenzo looked at the older Uchiha with what could only be described as pity. Itachi shook his head. It is, truly a punishment. Itachi can't be the only waiter, though, I said, slyly looking over at Kakashi. Oh, Kakashi. Not even when hell freezes over, he politely informed me. Party pooper. The return to Konoha was anticlimactic. We rushed everybody into Tsunade's office, and while she looked over Itachi, I gave the mission report, recapping almost everything that happened, substituting Itachi popping into my mind with I seduced him with my main protagonist pink hair. He got a few looks, but the good boy just nodded in affirmation. Okay. Tenzo, escort Yugo, Karen, and Suijutsu to T&I for Anko's assessment, Tsunade ordered with a slight nod once the report was done. T&I. Suijutsu repeated, indigent. Don't worry, you won't be hurt, I half-heartedly reassured them. Well, Karen and Yugo won't be. You probably will be. Just go, Sasuke ordered, and his temporary team obliged. Shizune and Kakashi, take Itachi to my private office at the hospital. Do not let anyone see him, Tsunade went on, and all three shinobi obeyed. I blew them a kiss goodbye, causing Shizune to giggle, Itachi's face to tighten like he bit into a lemon, and Kakashi to look very much like he just wanted to crawl into bed and call it a day. Tsunade then swung her gaze over to Team 8. Team 8, dismissed. Hinata and her team bowed before taking their exit. All right, Tsunade said with a nod. Sasuke, Sakura tells me you're the best one to take down Danzo. Are you ready now? More than ready. Sai, contact Danzo to arrange a meeting. Let him know that you have Sasuke, and he's injured from his fight with Itachi. Sai nodded to accept such. Sakura, you know where the last of the bases are? Tsunade questioned. I hadn't previously known. But Nezuko did. I smiled blithely. Yes. I know them all. Take who you can trust that's available and clean them up. Naruto, follow behind Sasuke and Sai and assist with Danzo. Jiraiya will be joining you shortly. Tsunade stood up from her desk, her eyes narrowing into slits. The infection gets cut out today. Move, now. For the most part Tsunade had uprooted, Danzo's operations over the years. She clipped out his umbu bit by bit mostly through assigned suicide missions that they didn't return on and put a firm halt to him grabbing fresh meat from the orphanages. There wasn't much Danzo could do without revealing his hand. He knew she knew, and she knew he knew, but neither were willing to go full out against one another just yet. Until today. There were 3 bases in Konoha that Tsunade hadn't found but Nezuko had and 5 outside Konoha. I couldn't visit those 5 that Emiwao had originally discovered since I didn't have any hydration marks prepared. That being said, I did have some friends nearby that could. The one in Suna would be something Gaara would want, and the 3 near Kirigakure could easily be dismantled by Haku. There was another one that rested in between Kumogakure and Iwagakure, but I'd have to wait until after the war to tackle that one. It was a massive one, and one that would require more than just me to take care of it. The first root base I went to was the one hidden underneath the Senju compound. It doubled as a hidden passageway in and out of Konoha. When Grandmother Mito originally died, Nezuko was left vulnerable. Danzo orchestrated men to kidnap her, and they were ushered in and out through that root base. He knew she had the Mokuton, and he wanted Orochimaru to have her reproduce for their own private army of Mokuton users. Nezuko was fortunate that Danzo had to hire those with weak chakras so they wouldn't be detected as a threat instead of using Orochimaru himself to kidnap her. And she was even more fortunate she was able to escape. Probably less fortunate that escaping meant falling into Madara's hands. Sex god aside, he was still messed up in the head from being isolated that long, but c'est la vie. I headed across the village to the Senju compound that had fallen in disarray. Tsunade hadn't stepped foot inside in decades, and with no other living Senju it had been abandoned to rot. Why doesn't she just sell it? It'd make a great spot for a new training ground, or I wonder if she'd be willing to let me use it as a spot to open my bakery. That deserved some asking to. After Nagato threw his hissy fit like the angsty red-haired goth boy he was, the whole place would be leveled, which would make it super easy to build a bakery from scratch. Especially with all the insurance money I'd cash in. I hopped over the fence, headed through the compound and went into the hidden room underneath Nazuka's old room. Nazuka's would-be room. Dropping down inside and confirming there were no chakra signatures inside, I set about to examine the place. It hadn't been used hardly at all in this timeline. Madara used it a lot after the I thought before shrugging. How many secret passages does Konoha have? Sasori inquired. Like 13, I answered. How much does Suna have? 33, he said with a sigh. At least they did since last I kidnapped the Kazekage. Ouch, I said. How are you going to destroy this, Deidara asked. Explosives, obviously, I told him, smiling at his delighted grin. Naruto made me colored explosive notes. Wanna see a rainbow? Hell yeah, he said. Are the others deserted? Kakuzu asked. Nope. I'll need to gas them out. Any suggestions on which toxin to try out? I asked them. You said you were curious if your salamanders could produce acid clouds, why not try? Sasori suggested. Something small like mustard gas. Oh. Yes. Great idea. If it works, I've had an idea I've wanted to try for a while, Kakuzu said. Mustard gas, with brown recluse venom. I clapped my hands at that. Oh goggle gods, that would be a sight to see. Why, what does that do? Deidara asked, looking between the elated poison lovers. If it works, their flesh will literally slide off like perfectly cooked ribs. Kakuzu suggested. Yes, like that. Deidara made a face at that. Why would you use that as your analogy? Well, do you have a better one? I retorted on Kakuzu's behalf. Deidara made a face at me, then I rolled my eyes. Fine. Like a bikini on a sunscreen slathered hottie going down a slip and slide. Deidara hummed at that. Oh, I see. Kind of, yeah. Kind of. Now I have the mental image of a bikini-covered zombie with flesh falling off it, yeah, he explained. Oh, sorry, I apologized meekly. Moving on, Sasori eloquently cut in. I'd like to try out gaseous acids for my bus before we get sidetracked by something else. Okay, I agreed to, starting to plant explosive tags all around the base and entrance tunnel. I grinned at Deidara. Hey, can I say the thing? The thing. He repeated back, blinking slowly before realizing what I meant. Oh. Sure. Woohoo. I cheered, hurrying up to finish planting the explosives. Once I was all done, I headed back up inside, clapped my hands together as I remotely triggered the tags and declared, Katsu. I got my rainbow explosions, and a whistle of approval from Deidara. Dear Sakura. Okay. No. Yours. Gaara. P.S. Tamari heard you were setting up a bakery in Konoha and wants to know if you will do the same in Sunagakuer. I would make arrangements to transfer your citizenship to Sunagakuer if so. Chapter 26, I can't take my eyes off you. By the poolside, I sat crisscross on a comfortable lounging chair. On the chair next to me was a relaxed Kakashi, sipping some fruity drink while in a black swimming top, to obviously keep his face covered, and puppy print trunks. AHH. Stop BLRRGH Neji. Naruto cried out as Neji tried to drown him after Hinata came out of the locker room. Darling Hinata looked absolutely amazing in her one piece and skirt, and unfortunately Naruto couldn't help but make a comment. Neji, who was in the pool with Naruto, did not appreciate said comment. Sigh, as Naruto's butt advocate, you must make sure he stays alive so more people can appreciate his butt, I reminded the pale boy. Sigh, who was perfectly content sitting at the pool side with his legs in the water while he chatted with Ino, gave me a dead serious nod before going off to rescue Naruto. Why don't I have a butt advocate? Ino pondered. I'll be your butt advocate when you turn 18, I immediately offered, not looking up from what I was sketching. Ino perked up at that. Tenten, lounging a ways from us, sighed audibly from that and gave me a tired look. What are you even doing, Sakura? Currently? Designing the cake I'm going to pop out of when I'm 18 for Kisame, I answered absently. Kakashi cleared his throat. Why are you jumping out of the cake? Because I want to, I said with a grin. I can jump out for you, sensei. Nope. Hard pass on that, Kakashi cheerfully replied. Have you been doing that this entire time? No, I was working on the menu at Cafe Nico Fetish. What? I'm still deciding on the name, I confessed. It'll come to me, I'm sure. Please don't name it Nico Fetish, Shikamaru deadpanned from across the pool. Well, I can't just call it hot men and women in cat uniforms. I retorted, then thought. Hamaika. How do you even pronounce that? Sasori asked, aghast. Why did they have to give you money for that idea? Kakuzu questioned. I ignored my snarky companions, returning back to work on my ever-important design for Kisame. After all, Pain would be attacking Konoha this week. Even without Jiraya's intervention, he always attacked Konoha on the same damn day every life unless I had been actively preventing it from day one. It actually made me question if there was a higher force at play. Maybe Kishimoto was a true god and could use plot no jutsu to keep certain events from ever changing. Not that Nagato would get to do much mayhem this time around. I've had years to plan this with Tsunade and her trusted advisors. Never mess with a dedicated fangirl who has time and knowledge on her side. After this pool party, Jiraiya would swoop in and take Naruto off to train until it was time for his big hero entrance. We had taken countless precautions to warn us the moment Nagato enters the land of fire, and the second we know we'll issue the evacuation and replacement. All civilians will be ushered out through secret underground tunnels far away enough from the danger. As each one enters the tunnel, a clone will replace them. Not just any clone. A special clone invented by Spy Master Jiraiya to essentially perfectly mimic a civilian, and die like a civilian. Man, Fuinjutsu was friggin' up. It was the Deus Ex Machina for the Naruto verse. Got a problem? Fuinjutsu can absolutely solve it somehow. The clones would only last for a few hours, but it should be enough to trick Nagato and Konan so they wouldn't piece the fuck out when they realize it's a trap. Obviously, though, this still came with risks. There was a good chance that we would still lose Shinobi and Kunoichi to their attack. It was a shame really, but it was hard to care. As callous, and cruel, as it might make me sound. I just didn't care about faceless lives anymore. If I could help them, keep them alive, I would. But I didn't see an option where I could do that and save Nagato and Konan. Both of which were needed for the least deaths possible in the war arc. Sacrifice them here, in exchange for the dozen or so lives saved in Konoha, and lose hundreds during the war arc. Or sacrifice a dozen Konoha shinobi and Kunoichi here to save hundreds in the war arc. It'd be super duper swell if Naruto's hero powers could extend to no one dying, but that was impossible in this world. But those were dreary thoughts and this was a fabulous day, so to heck with that. Kakashi, what kind of cake would you like me to jump out of for you? I asked him, starting to shade in Kisame's cake. He rubbed his face. I could have sworn I told you, not even a minute ago, I did not want you to jump out of a cake for me. Rhubarb and strawberry. I suggested. No. Chocolate banana. No. Blueberry. No. Oh, I see. Okay, I'll just do marble cake for you, I said, deciding with a firm nod. Why do I bother? He questioned himself. I have no clue, I hummed. I have decided on strawberry cake for Kisame-sama, though. I know he looks badass, but he has a supremely cute sense of taste. Kakashi sipped his fruity drink through the bendy straw. Fascinating. Completely. You know, Kisame-sama would be happy to see me jump out of a cake for him when I'm 18, I told Kakashi. Kakashi took another sip of his fruity drink, turned his head and looked me dead in the eye as he deadpanned, fascinating. I wagged my finger at him. You're a stinker sometimes. But I love you. I know you love me, he returned. I appreciate it. I gasped, my eyes wide as I turned back to face him. Really? Really what? Kakashi asked, his face pale as he started to inch away. You appreciate me? I didn't say that. You did, though. Nope. Bye, he said before immediately substituting himself with a log and fleeing. With a soft smile, I placed a hand over my heart. Silly fella. I'll always love ya. Always and always. On the day that Nagato was set to invade, Itachi and I headed out of the village. There really was no need for either of us to partake in the invasion. Itachi because he was still recovering, and I because I was way too valuable to even risk accidental death. Sasuke was supposed to come with us, but he actually went off to train with the Toads with Naruto in a surprising show of friendship. Well, maybe not friendship so much as I let it slip that Naruto was going to get one hell of an upgrade by training out there, and Sasuke absolutely had to get the same upgrade. Goggle gods forbid his butt buddy can't be stronger than him. In lieu of Sasuke not coming, Kakashi was intended to take his place, but ever since his accidental confessed, the poor boy has been avoiding me. What a cutie. That wasn't to say that Kakashi wasn't going to come with us. He didn't mention not tagging along, but I thought I'd be nice and considerate and just lie to Itachi about what time to meet up and sneak out. A lot more fun that way in case something exciting happens to us. Like a certain Obito kidnapping me. Please? Itachi walked steadily behind me through the forest as we marched toward Kirigakure. I wasn't actually going to go to Kirigakure, but I had an itch in my head that told me that I would run into Haku if I headed off in that direction long enough. Itachi? I asked him, hoisting up my backpack further on my shoulders. What kind of cat ears would? Oh I. Bye-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee-ee- as he buried his face in his hands. I had hoped he was dead, Sasori whispered, a 1,000-yard stare entering his eyes. I wish I had some ibuprofen. Yeah, Datara sighed, rubbing his forehead for the oncoming headache that was Hidan. To my delighted surprise I found Hidan barreling to us through the woods with a smirking Anko behind him. Hidan, no longer in Akatsuki robes, was now dressed in tight black pants and ripped-up shirt. Oddly enough they actually looked like Anko's old clothes. Bastard! I joyously cried out, sprinting head-on toward the sexy silver-haired Jashinist. Hidan accepted my hug as fellow disciple. The cookies were great, and Anko's a halfway decent disciple. Halfway decent? Anko snapped, offended. I'm amazing, thank you. Yes. No one does S&M like Anko, I loyally praised her. Then the conversion in TNI is going well. No complaints, Anko said cheerfully. Or, well, there were no complaints until this guy busted out and tried to find you. I, coincidentally, will only find and recapture him after he's already reached you. I think it'll take him a few more hours to reach me, I told her, smiling sweetly at both of them. I'm so happy for both of you. But what are you doing here, Hidan? Jashin-sama told me to tell you that he won't really tell the rainbow stick story today. Hidan proudly relayed this vital message to me. Ah, I said, shoulders dropping. Well, geez, thanks for telling me. I totally would have sold myself out today otherwise. I know, Hidan said, offering me a consoling pat on the shoulder. How does Jashin relate to your insane gods? Sasori questioned. I couldn't resist tossing Sasori a smug smile. It'd be nice to say you'll see to him, but Sasori likely wouldn't get to fit all the pieces together. The mystery behind Jashin was something that took lifetimes to uncover, after all. And it wasn't going to be spoiled in this life. With a clap of my hands, I said, would you and Anko care to join Itachi and myself for a stroll in the woods as we wait out a Ginger's temper tantrum? That depends on what you have in the bag, Hidan said, gesturing toward my backpack was stuffed to the brim with baked goods. Sweet stuff, the good sweet stuff, I said, wiggling my eyebrows up and down. Suddenly a walk through the woods sounds like the perfect way to kill time, Anko observed, stepping forward and hooking an arm through mine. It took about 5 hours of walking, shit-talking, and general merriment before we were greeted by a pleasant surprise. Obito popped up a tree branch above us, looking decidedly not happy that I wasn't alone. I love you. I immediately offered up to him. And here Toby was about to save you from the big bad pain, Obito muttered. I patted my backpack. How about you join us for the good stuff, then? We can set a picnic up just up ahead. You said I could kidnap you anytime, Obito pouted. For the rainbow stick story, I agreed, grinning widely. Are you going to tell it? Yes. Liar, Jashin-sama told Hidan to tell me that you would not tell the story today, I retorted. How about tomorrow? No, you spoiler. Then I will not be a willing hostage that will strip on command, I politely informed him. I didn't ask you to no, never mind, Obito sighed. Look, if you're not here for food, and you're not here to strip for us, then get lost fucker, Hidan said, making shooing motions at Obito. Why I'm not, Obito spluttered. Why won't you strip for us? I questioned, putting on a sad puppy dog look. I would throw all my money at you. Obito didn't have a response for that, so he left. Not without wagging the rainbow stick at me in a taunting goodbye again. The jerk. Perhaps it would be best if we still stopped for the picnic. Itachi asked, not so subtly eyeing the backpack. Yeah, we definitely wouldn't want those treats to go to waste, Anko nodded firmly, also eyeing the backpack. Your wishes are my commands, I said with a bow. In a beautiful clearing on a beautiful day we set up a lovely picnic. Itachi had carried the basket with the picnic mat and supplies, while I had carried the bag filled with delightful food I had made the prior day. We laid out the blanket and set up the food. Just as I was about to cut open the 5-tiered red velvet cake, a few guests burst into the clearing to join us. I had sensed them a while ago, and prepared extra plates for them. Giving them a cheerful wave with my serving knife I greeted, "Hi." Haku, Zabuza, and a lady I didn't recognize but who looked hecka adorable, headed in our direction. Haku had a big smile on his face. The instant he reached us he gave me a light peck on the cheek. The lady squawked, horrified by this, before he took a seat beside me. Sakura-sensei, it's so lovely to see you again in person. Pictures don't do you justice, Haku, I said, grinning widely from the kiss. You look amazing. And he did. With an androgynous look the boy was prettier than I was. He had the long lashes, the dark eyes, cute mouth, he had it all. Although in an effort to appear a touch more masculine he decided not to dress in a yukata or kimono today. What a shame. Instead he wore the standard kirigaku or jonin attire, as did Zabuza, and tied his hair off to the side like those anime moms that got killed off in the main character's childhood. Haku better not become a mom with that hairdo. He's in serious danger. We smelled the cake, Zabuza said, showing off his sharp teeth with that beautiful smile of his. He took a seat beside Anko, the two likely recognizing each other through my letters. You don't mind us joining you, do you? Haku inquired. Baby, you can live with me if you want, I shamelessly offered. Ahem, coughed the cute lady who was now starting to glare at me. Haku sighed. Sakura-sensei, this is, sigh. Kiki. Kiki, this is the wonderful Sakura-sensei who saved my life. Kiki was a petite girl who had that haughty heiress vibe going on with her, you know, the kind that go oh ho 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 in that high-pitched tone that's a lot of fun to do. She had the archetype ringlet blonde hair, and grey eyes to go along with her fashionable kimono. I am Kiki, Kiki proudly declared. Leader of Haku's fan club. Oh, wow. I'm the leader of Kisame-sama and Madara-sama's fan clubs, I excitedly stated, happy to finally meet another fan club president in this world. What knights do you meet? Kiki's eyes sparkled with joy at this admission. Oh, my. I didn't expect you to also be a fan club leader. We meet on the 1st of the month, every month. That sounds like so much fun. How big has the club grown? We've proudly reached over 100 members last year. Holy tamale, that's amazing, I gushed. Both of mine are still pretty small, and I think Naruto and Hinata are only a part of it as a gesture of support rather than true believers. Ah, Kiki said, reaching over to comfortingly pat the back of my hand. I'm sure people will appreciate your club soon enough. I sniffled. I hope so. Hidan groaned. Can we stop with the fangirling? I'm fucking hungry. Yes, yes, I said. Who's ready for some cake? Extra. Yugo spotted Kimimaro the instant he finished being escorted through the evacuation tunnel. His heart swelled and he could feel tears prick at his eyes. He had only been cleared for light security yesterday, so he took the opportunity to completely ignore his escort and beeline toward Kimimaro. Yugo called out, "Kimimaro! Kimimaro!" Kimimaro blinked slowly, halting his conversation with a very pregnant Kurenai. The white-haired teenager turned around to face a positively elated Yugo. "Yes. It's me." Yugo excitedly exclaimed, grinning widely. "Oh," Kimimaro responded before he pulled a sweater out of his messenger bag. "Sakura asked me to give this to you. She's told me a lot about you. I know we were friends once, and I hope to be friends again." Yugo had heard about Kimimaro's memories being sealed, but he had hoped that their memories together would still remain. Yugo couldn't resist his shoulders slouching as he hung his head. Kimimaro reached out a hesitant hand to place it on Yugo's arm. "I don't quite remember you, but I know I like you a lot. Would you please be my companion again?" Yugo smiled at that, a touch sad and touch hopeful. "I'd like that." Chapter 27, Tea Time. Haku gently blew on his tea. "What a delicious picnic, Sakura-sensei." "Thank you kindly, my dear," I chirped. "Now that we all have food in our bellies, mind telling us what Kirigakure wants?" "We were here to officially invite the Hokage to a Kage summit in the Land of Iron," Haku explained. "The Raikage is demanding a union to deal with the Akatsuki threat. Apparently Kumogakure has lost 2 Jinchuriki to them now. I figured Yujito would die before I could intervene, but I didn't think they'd attack B. How exactly did that go down without Sasuke's group? It certainly couldn't have been Kisame. Pain and Konan are attacking Konoha now, and there's no way B would have been able to slip by Obito. Unless he didn't slip by Obito and my interference caused the death of a fan favorite. Oh. I did not want to think about that. For now I will hope for the best and follow the path as if B had successfully escaped his attacker, S. Yeah, I said slowly, somehow keeping my face deadpan. Those Akatsuki are a real threat. Hey. Deidara protested upon hearing my sarcasm. It would be best if we united against any force that has successfully kidnapped Jinchuriki, Haku pointed out. That makes sense, I allowed. Konoha is currently being attacked by 2 Akatsuki members. What? Anko gasped. We have to go back. I dismissed her with a wave of my hand. Tsunade-sama and I have been preparing for this for years. It's completely under control. Besides, there's a reason I was sent out here. I can't go back until the sun has set. Haku tapped his chin thoughtfully. What if Konoha is destroyed? If you had nowhere else to go, Kirigakure would welcome you. Ah, I could. So sweet. But that's not an issue. Konoha's buildings will definitely need to get remade, but only a dozen or so lives should be lost. We've had this planned out for a while, and unless they resurrected Madara-sama himself, we'll be fine. Who the fuck is Madara? Hidan asked with a frown. I gasped at that blasphemy. How dare you not know the hottest warmonger to have ever lived? Fortunately for you, I keep a sketchbook on me at all times, and it just so happens to have plenty of sketches of Madara-sama. True to my word, I pulled out my nearly filled up red sketchbook and flipped toward the first drawing of Madara before handing it over to Hidan. Hidan squinted at it, unimpressed. He's not that hot. How dare you? That's like saying Kisame-sama is ugly. He is. With a battle cry, I launched myself Hidan, dead set on defending the honor of my idols by any means necessary. Ah. Get it off, get it off. Stop biting me, you stupid bitch. As I sat on top of a hog-tied Hidan, I took another dainty sip from the lavender black tea, otherwise known as Earl Grey, I had brought. The day's still young. Would anyone care to join me in fishing? I just so happen to have some live bait. Hidan made a strangled cry of outrage of that through his gag. I improvised and used my socks to make it. Fishing sounds nice and relaxing, Anko said with a wicked grin. There's a lake up ahead. Konoha really is fine. Kiki asked, a touch worried. Naruto's got it covered, I dismissed. Therapy no jutsu? Haku inquired. Therapy no jutsu. I confirmed with a decisive nod. And with that, we went to go fishing. So darlings, shall I take a guess at the second reason y'all are here? I asked, casting out my fishing line and admiring the pretty lake view. At Haku's encouraging nod, I grinned. Y'all want me to set up my bakery in Kirigakure? Zabuza snorted at that, and Kiki actually looked impressed. Nearly perfect, Sakura-sensei, Haku praised. Mei-sama understands that you would be reluctant to move out of Konohagakure, and so I proposed that I would study under you and then set up a bakery in Kirigakure. Oh. Heck yeah, I cheered. Konoha's currently getting a makeover, so I'll be building my bakery from scratch. It should be good to go after the war, so you can start your apprenticeship whenever. You don't mind dressing up, do you? Nope, Haku confirmed. Excellent, I finished it off with my best guy impression. Zabuza lazily cast out his own fishing line. Will Konoha be able to move out to the summit on time? It's in a week. Yeah, I'll go with Tsunade and Probably Kakashi, I said, drawing out probably as I considered who she would bring. I was an obvious choice, especially since Shizune would do an excellent job as administrator of the rebuild preparation. Kakashi was a public figure, and is known as one of Konoha's strongest shinobi. It would be important to show a display of strength. Jiraiya would have been another option, but his arsenal was perfect for defending the village in case of another attack, whereas Kakashi was better suited for one-on-one battles or bodyguarding. Plus, Tsunade thrived on making Kakashi uncomfortable, and who better to do that than I? Plus, there'd be another chance to make fun of Kakashi's obvious boy crush on Obito. That was simply too good of an opportunity to be passed up, and I was certain Tsunade would agree with me. Gosh. Almost done with all the Shippuden arcs. We're in the war arc now, which means... A wicked grin stretched over my face. Madara-sama is coming. Once the night hit, it was time to head back to Konoha. It came as no surprise that everyone was already throwing a massive hooray we're alive party planned by Tsunade to raise morale after being attacked and, having the whole village destroyed. Itachi and I headed off to tell Tsunade about the summit, while Anko dragged Hidan over to the TNI party. Tsunade was found in a closed-off tent, enjoying the baked goods and teas I had already prepared and stored in one of Naruto's storage scrolls. Sitting across from her was an exhausted Nagato, a stoic Konan, and an elated Jiraiya. Naruto was sprawled out on the floor, cake on his chest that he picked off bits and pieces of with his fingers to eat, and Sasuke was Bruto, actually he was just chilling in the corner, not brooding at all. Weird. Hey, cool, the party's here, I cheered, then winked at Konan and Nagato. What fine specimens you two are. Rar. To their credit, neither reacted to my flirtations. Nagato, Konan, this is my adopted mother, Sakura, Naruto introduced, waving his hand in between us. Sakura, you already know your future harem members. How do you do? I greeted with all the charm and enthusiasm I could muster. I take it you've already been filled in. We are prepared to believe in Naruto's version of peace, Nagato solemnly stated. We also understand that the man we knew as Madara is not truly Madara, but is, in fact, Obito Uchiha. I took a seat beside Tsunade, and Itachi sat next to me, which drew an inscrutable look from Nagato and Konan. I said, good. We ran into some Kirigakure shinobi outside, and they've invited us to Kumo's summit in the Land of Iron. You have some scary good accuracy, Tsunade observed, drinking more tea. Goggle gods be praised, Jiraiya said with a slow nod. I beamed at that. Yes, indeed. This summit, what will happen? Nagato questioned, his gaze narrowed as he assessed me. Obito will declare war to draw out the remaining Biju, I explained. He's been preparing a massive army using advanced Zetsu clones. Kabuto the bastard will team up with him and resurrect some powerful allies, including Madara-sama. Tsunade and Jiraiya did a spit take. Don't worry. I can take care of Madara-sama, I said confidently. As soon as he appears on the field, I'll head out. That being said, the rest of the villages will need to reunite to fend off the Zetsu clones and reanimated shinobi. We'll need a task force to take care of Kabuto and stop the reanimation, Jiraiya said carefully, still bewildered by the revelation that the great Madara-sama would be gracing us with his presence soon. "I've got that taken care of, too," I said, resisting the urge to look at my captured Akatsuki members. "Oh no," Sasori moaned, somehow sensing where this was leading. "I am not helping you." "Shut up, yeah," Deidara hissed. "She'll free us if we say we will." "That woman can sense a lie," Kakuzu disagreed. "She's 90% bullshit, so she knows when it's being used against her. Instead, ask what do we get for helping her." "I won't help for anything less than a cake every month for the rest of my life," "Yeah," Deidara said, perfectly serious. "You would whore yourself out for cake?" Sasori demanded, aghast with the notion. "It's not just ordinary cake, yeah," Deidara defended. "You're just mad because you'll get a taste of it." This incited a rather heated debate that was rather distracting to listen to and fill Nagato and Konan in on my stupendously epic final plan trademark. But I am fabulous, so I succeeded. The week following Nagato's hissy fit was simultaneously dull and busy. Danzo en route were taken care of except for a few unmanned bases we would clean up after the war, and there were no active threats against Konoha for now. We spent the entire week rapidly rebuilding Konoha, and Naruto showed off his thousands upon thousands of clones, which warranted him a lot of praise, and preparing for war. The actual war would happen a month after the summit, giving Naruto plenty of time to get buddy-buddy with Art Thunder or Fluffy Boy. Hopefully enough time for Obito to start Road to Ninja 2. So not fair that Emiwao was the only one of us to get to go there. I wanted a perfect illusionary world to frolic in. Anyway, the reconstruction of Konoha occupied just about all of my time. I went ahead and started construction on my bakery, name yet to be decided, and negotiated with the Akatsuki about what they wanted in return for killing Kabuto. Deidara wanted food, which was easy. Kakuzu wanted a share in my bakery profits and the right to call in for my apparently potentially very profitable services without fuss. Sasori tried to negotiate having me give Hashirama or Madara's corpse to him to use as a puppet, but that simply wasn't going to happen. In the end he got unlimited access to Doka creating poison, and I had to give him some of my recipes. At the end of the week, Tsunade, Kakashi, Woot Woot, and I headed off to the summit. What a fun time that turned out to be. I followed right beside Tsunade as she led Kakashi and I through the halls of the massive samurai fortress. The Land of Iron was a pretty place, all snow and black mountains, but the fortress was the definition of edgy, and look how intimidating we are. Oh. It was poorly lit, mostly black and gray, and friggin' cold. I had to keep circulating my chakra throughout my body to keep warm. Those poor samurai stuck here only had the clothes on their backs to do that. I did try to use that chance to cuddle up to Kakashi, but he effortlessly stepped on my foot hard enough to make me hobble behind him. Feisty boy. Finally, we entered the meeting room. It took a moment for my eyes to adjust, since the meeting room was so much brighter than the morbid halls behind us. There was a large oak semicircle desk with banners behind each seat. Each banner held a single kanji of each of the elemental nations: fire, wind, water, etc. In front of each banner was a seat, and in the seats were some of the kage. There was a small desk that sat in front of the semicircle, and at that desk was Mifune, who had two of his bodyguards displaying. To Mifune's direct right was the Raikage. I couldn't see his bodyguards, as they were hidden behind the banner in the dark, but I knew they were there. To Mifune's direct left was the Mizukage, Mei. Next to her, there was an open seat, and then the Kaze Kage, Gaara, sat in the middle seat. Then there was yet another empty seat in between Gaara and I. I couldn't see Tamari and Kankuro very well, but I knew they could see me. Not that it mattered, I already had my target locked on. Gaara-kun, I squealed, drawing everyone's attention towards me. And Mei-chan. I did a little spasm dance as I struggled which of the two cuties to hug first. Since Gaara was closer, I rushed over and went to hug him first. I kissed the top of his head as he patted my back, and then I sprinted over and tackled into Mei, who accepted my embrace with grace and beauty. Sakura, Tsunade admonished with amusement tinting her voice. Were you really unable to control yourself? Sorry, I said, obviously not meaning it at all. No, you're not, Kakuzu grumbled. I smiled cheekily and looked around, reluctantly letting go of Mei. Sorry for that, Interruption, everyone. I just couldn't help myself. When you see these two cuties, how can you resist? I'm sure they don't mind, Mei dismissed, all smiles and sparkling eyes. Haku told me the wonderful news. Oh, yes, I'll be excited to make sure Kirigakure has their own bakery so lovelies like yourself can be pampered, I purred at her, winking for good measure. Gaara politely cleared his throat. And Tsunagakure, I added. You just send a couple of your chosen cutie potooties and I'll take care of em. Gaara accepted this greatly important task with a nod. I would later learn that during the month to prepare for war, Gaara would hold a cooking tournament and the winner would earn the right to apprentice under me. It was the single greatest spectacle ever held. Friendships destroyed. Tea spilled. Tears shed. All the while a stoic red-haired panda boy sat upon his throne and watched the chaos unfold as he eats my famous opera cake. Amazing. Tsunade strode across the room, taking a seat in between Gaara and I. Kakashi casually followed right behind her before ducking behind the banner and to her left. Taking the hint, I ducked behind the banner, catching Tamari's eye, and we exchanged a less than subtle, but still pretty quiet, high five before I moved to where I was supposed to be. When I moved to my place, Oniki entered the room followed by his two bodyguards. He eyed the room with a very calculating eye before he took his seat. I am Mifune, our moderator, Mifune said once everyone was seated. The 5 Kage Summit Conference is now called into order. Almost instantly, the room lost its relaxing feel to it. Okay, it was only relaxing and nonchalant to me, but still, and the air became thick with tension. I wish I had popcorn. As if sensing my thoughts, Kakashi flicked the back of my ear and gave me a look that conveyed, behave. Oh, if that wasn't a challenge, I don't know what was. I shall speak first. Hear me, Gaara said, his voice kept neutral and his eyes kept flat. There's such a difference in Kage these days, Oniki sneered like the grouchy old fart he was. If I didn't know he was such a teddy bear grandpa, I might have been offended on behalf of my dear Gaara. To be a Kage at your age is quite an accomplishment, Kaze Kage. It seems your father trained you extremely well, except in the area of proper etiquette. You're probably right, Gaara said coolly. It is the reason why I can be here as Kaze Kage. Oniki gave a laugh that held no merit to it. You certainly are cocky. Chuchikage Dano, there's no need to make fun of him, Mei said smoothly, with only a hint of a scolding tone in her voice. Continue, Kaze Kage Dano. I am a former Jinchuriki, Gaara said. I was captured by the Akatsuki, and they nearly succeeded in capturing my Biju and almost killed me. I consider the Akatsuki extremely dangerous. I sought out the cooperation of the other 5 Kage many times, but was ignored by all, except the Hokage. At a time when various lands have had their Jinchuriki stolen, the response by this group has been far too slow. Oniki scoffed. How can the hidden villages of the 5 great nations serve as an example when they allow their Jinchuriki to be taken? It's an embarrassment. It is common sense to resolve this in utmost secrecy. Seeking the help of other lands just because of that is nonsense. Says the old fart that lost 2 already, I coughed. I didn't even see the pen flying at me. Tsunade's retribution for my snide remark was swift and painful. Hit me square in the nose hard enough for it to break. Save face. Prestige. Such old-fashioned beliefs, Gaara droned. Old-fashioned beliefs aside, I will acknowledge that as the Mizukage, I have delayed action. However, having our Biju stolen is no cause for immediate fear. Controlling a Biju requires skill, knowledge, and time, Mei logically pointed out. The Jinchuriki and the Biju must mature together and adapt to each other, Oniki agreed. And still, controlling the Biju is difficult. It is not a simple task. Isn't that so, Kaze Kage Dano? He definitely couldn't. I signed to Tamari, Kakashi, and Kankuro. That caused a grin to form from my Suna buddies. Kakashi signed back, don't make me handcuff and gag you again. Stinker, I retorted. Tsunade drummed her fingers against the desk. The only people who were capable of controlling the Biju were Uchiha Madara, Senju Hashirama, the 4th Mizukage Yagura, and Killer B. But that does not mean. Tensing at the sudden wave of killer intent, I gripped my kunai at the same time Kakashi did. Enough of this. I roared, slamming his fist into the desk, practically destroying his part of it. His burst of malicious intent caused all the bodyguards to leap out from behind the banners. I did so with a twirl and flare, flipping my hair back and winking at Mei and Gaara. Mifune gave a sigh. This is a place of discussion. Please refrain from disruptive actions. Come on back, Sakura, Kakashi. Tsunade mildly called out. You too, Kankuro, Temari, Gaara said. Ayo, Kojuro. I'm fine, Mei said. Oniki only inclined his head. I gave something akin to a pout and glare. How can someone that badass looking pout, before pulling his fist out of the desk and sitting back down. The bodyguards quickly fell back into position. You know, I was really hoping you'd kill that old fart. Yeah, Deidara grumbled. She would have if he threatened her dear Kisame-sama, Sasori snarked like the sassy pants he was. He would have a high bounty on his head, Kakuzu mused. I wouldn't mind helping her. Split it 30-70 my way. I'd do it for free if he was after Kisame-sama, I muttered quietly. 100 my way works too, Kakuzu went on without missing a beat. Let us continue our discussion, Mifune said, as Kakashi politely gave me a final warning to behave. Konoha, Iwa, Suna, Kiri, rogue shinobi from your villages make up the Akatsuki. And that is not all. From our investigations we know that among you, including your previous Kage, there are those who used the Akatsuki. Immediately, Tsunade tensed and my Akatsuki members innocently glanced around. Deidara even whistled. Used them? Gaara inquired, shock registering on his face. I do not trust you, I growled. I had no intention of even discussing this with you. But the reason I convened this summit is to question your loyalty. What do you mean, used the Akatsuki? Gaara asked. You are the Kaze Kage, yet you have not been informed. I demanded. Ask the elders back home. You used the Akatsuki in the past war. The great nations are heading towards uniform stability, Oniki said. They are moving from military expansion to military disarmament. As fear and the threat of war diminishes between the nations, hidden villages which are the source of its military strength become costly hindrances. And yet carelessly downsizing the villages poses a risk. What if war suddenly breaks out? It would be a problem to depend on shinobi who have no experience in war. It would mean certain defeat. And one way to reduce that risk is mercenary soldiers, Gaara said flatly. Namely, the Akatsuki. It takes effort and money to train skilled shinobi from your own village, Oniki droned. But the Akatsuki, which makes war its livelihood, is made up of experienced professionals. Furthermore, they can be hired for cheap. Best of all, they return exceptional results. Get serious, Chuchikage. I snarled. Oniki scoffed, but I continued on. Suna used the Akatsuki to destroy Konoha. I'm speaking of Orochimaru. It is not clear if he had broken away from the Akatsuki or not. But as a result the fourth Kaze Kage and the third Hokage died. And frankly, it's hard not to rule out the idea that this was someone's scheme. Ai's eyes moved over to Tsunade. Her eyes narrowed. For your sake, I hope you are not implying I killed my own sensei for this demmed spot, Tsunade growled. I only sneered in response. Tsunade gave a small frown, the scowl on her face never wavering. Her tone was laced with condescension as she drawled out, I assure you, we have taken care of our problem. Do not concern yourself with it. Raikage. Ai's eyes narrowed before swinging towards Mei. The most suspicious is Kirigakure. You, Kiri, do not conduct diplomacy. There are even rumors that the Akatsuki originated there. Mei's eyes trailed down sadly, her expression a mixture between solemn and melancholy. Since we have come this far I will speak honestly. There were suspicions that someone was manipulating Yagura, our fourth Mizukage. And there was a possibility that it was the Akatsuki. No one wanted this to get blown out of proportion. Each and every one of you. Hold your tongue, Raikage, Oniki snapped. Ultimately, it is all because your village disregarded the disarmament efforts and sought out powerful ninjutsu. We had no choice but to counter by hiring the Akatsuki. What? I snarled, standing up. Before we argue too much, as I was saying before I was interrupted so long ago, Tsunade said. I have good reason to believe the true leader of the Akatsuki is someone who goes by the name of Uchiha Madara. Obviously this was a big fat, juicy lie, but we needed the villages to unite against the Akatsuki. Tsunade agreed with me that Obito wasn't enough of a scary boy to do that, and so. Cue the frozen faces of shock and fear. And many eye rolls from the Akatsuki members behind me who knew the truth. Are you sure? Mei tentatively asked Tsunade. Hasn't he been dead for several decades? Gaara inquired, frowning minutely. He is right. He died a long time ago, Oniki said, but even I could see the slight unease and hesitation in him. Uchiha Madara commanded the Biju, many decades ago, Tsunade bluffed like the experienced gambler she is. If he is the leader of the Akatsuki, we have reason to worry now. Furthermore, I have not yet been made aware of all the details yet, but I do know enough to be concerned. Are you saying he's immortal? I demanded. Tsunade remained silent, her expression devoid of emotion. To think. Oniki trailed off for a moment. He really was a monster. I slumped in his chair. After a pregnant pause of silence, Mifune cleared his throat. I wish to speak on behalf of the neutral nations. The leader of the Akatsuki was able to read the times well. Despite stabilization, nations have had private suspicions, and the Akatsuki took advantage of that weakness to amass its power. What are you trying to say? I roared. Calm down, Mifune placated him. Turn calamity into good fortune. It is extremely rare for all 5 Kage to assemble. What do you say? Until the Akatsuki is eliminated, why not establish the world's first allied shinobi forces of the 5 hidden villages? An allied force? I echoed. Tsunade tilted her head. We are in a state of urgency, I see no reason to go against such a plan. Going forward, we have to determine the chain of command, Mifune said. We must avoid any further confusion. So? Who will we choose to lead the allied forces? Oniki asked, a sly smile spreading across his face. Leaving that to you 5 will only result in arguments, Mifune said thinly. So I ask that you respect the position of neutral nations and allow me to come up with a proposal to decide who among you 5 Kage is most suitable. Tsunade cleared her throat. Before you begin, I ask that I answer a question from one of my jonin. I smiled happily and jumped down to sit on the desk beside Tsunade. Thanks Hokage-sama. I won't be long. Eyes glowered at me. It's just a quick question about Killer Bee-sama. When he fought the Akatsuki, did he lose a tentacle? Eyes flickered wide for a moment before narrowing into slits. And what if he did? Ah, so he did, I concluded, sighing with relief. Oh, okay then. He's alive, by the way. Eyes widened. What? He used the fight as a diversion to escape, I told him. He's currently talking to some rap master in the forest surrounding this very mountain. The Akatsuki probably figured out by now that he had fooled them, so they're probably going to send Kisame after him and whatnot. Are you certain? I demanded. Positive, I assured him. Doesn't it sound like him, anyway? I frowned and shook his head, his face twisting into a furious scowl. Yes. It does. I smiled. Glad I could be of assistance then. If you want, I would be more than happy to take you straight to him after this meeting, with Hokage-sama's permission of course. You already have it, Tsunade said. I nodded. I know. But it's nice to double-check and stuff. Raikage eyed me another moment before returning his gaze to Mifune. Then, as I was saying, Mifune said. The leader. The ground erupted in the center of the room and I lazily looked at it as White Zetsu wiggled his way up, smiling insanely. Hello. Immediately all the bodyguards minus myself jumped out from their spots and readied themselves in a defensive position. Now what? I raged. Zetsu, I greeted. What the gosh darn dilly-dally heck are you doing here? I am so surprised and was absolutely not expecting you. My, what is everyone doing here? Zetsu crowed. I hope I'm not interrupting. Before the blink of an eye, I had a single strong hand wrapped tightly around Zetsu's throat. "What the hell are you doing here, trash?" Zetsu only smiled as I tightened his hold. "If you don't answer me, I won't show any mercy." Zetsu only laughed, and I glared down at him furiously before snapping his neck. "You didn't have to kill him," Mei sighed. "We could have taken and tortured him into revealing intel about the Akatsuki. No one in the Akatsuki talks. They are extremely loyal," Gaara remarked. "I don't know, money talks," Kakuzu disagreed. "Greedy fart, yeah," Deidara muttered. I'm used. If Zetsu showed up, does that mean someone else will show up too? "Only time will tell," Mei said. "Do we wait here or do we search?" "Let them come to us," Tsunade said. "If we fight together, it would increase our chances." I snorted but sat back down. I pulled out a deck of cards and turned to Tsunade, Gaara, Temari and Kankuro. "Wanna play?" Tsunade frowned thoughtfully. "Sakura, this is a very serious meeting. You cannot simply." She paused. "Ah, what the hell? Sure. I wouldn't mind joining," Temari said with a shrug. Gaara shook his head. I looked over to Mei and her bodyguards. "Wanna join?" "Sakura-chan, you really shouldn't be starting up a card game in the middle of a summit," Mei scolded me half-heartedly. "I brought cookies and muffins," I shamelessly bribed. Mei coughed. "I suppose a couple rounds would be necessary to ease the tensions." "This is an acceptable course of action," Gaara agreed, nodding wisely. "Although I gotta say, Mei-chan, I'm surprised you didn't bring your beloved Zabuza," I teased. "Ha!" Mei scoffed. "Zabuza is nowhere near my beloved." "Haku already told me he caught you doing the horizontal tango," I interrupted her. "Damn him," Mei cursed. "Cookie. You're lucky you're a cute baker," Mei accepted the cookie and the cards. I smiled happily. "What have we here?" All of us paused in the middle of our game, glancing up from our cards to stare as Obito ever so slowly materialized before us. "Hey, handsome!" I exclaimed happily. Obito glanced at me, his single visible eye locking with mine. I winked and blew him a kiss. Despite my nonchalant manner, the rest of my fellow shinobi and kunoichi were tense as all heck. Obito appeared before us, looking completely at ease yet very smug. It was incredibly awesome. Then he spoke in that even more awesome voice that I finally get to hear aside from my dreams. Well, I didn't call him Smexy voice for nothing. "My name is Uchiha Madara," Obito said, perfectly mimicking Madara's voice. He then went on to say, "I have something I want to explain to you all, and once you comprehend it, I want to pose a question." "What is it?" I demanded. "It's about my plan. Moon's Eye plan." I lunged forward, his entire body alight with blue electricity before his fist slammed where Obito should have been. Unsurprisingly, he went right through Obito and crashed into the wall behind him. Obito stood perfectly still, completely unchanged. "Nothing planned by the Akatsuki is going to be good," I declared. "Who knows what you're up to? All I ask is that you listen to my explanation," Obito insisted. "Calm down, Raikage-dano," Oniki said. "Let's hear him out and take it from there." I gave a grunt. "Hi, sweetie," I chirped. Obito glanced at me. "I don't have the rainbow stick. I love you even without it." Obito continued to stare at me another moment, debating on what to do. "You're very hard to contact alone." "I know," I said. "For some reason my friends don't want me to be kidnapped, though." "I wouldn't kidnap you," Obito purred. "I just want to talk." I gazed up at him longingly. "You're making it very hard to stay loyal to Kisame-sama when you use that voice." Obito chuckled and I struggled desperately not to gush about it. Or squeal. Damn it, I was reverting back to my original Obito/Madara fangirl self. I couldn't cheat on Kisame like that. Even though I don't think he particularly cared one or another, though I'd like to think that he did, it was the principle. Or maybe it was just Mia and Nazuka acting up. "Be chill, ladies. Stop that," I scolded. Obito only tilted his head in a curious manner before he leapt back, jumping up to the high balcony and then promptly sitting down. But, of course, he sat down like a badass, not just regularly sitting down. Heaven forbid Obito did anything regularly. Now then, are you all ready to listen? Obito asked, deciding to move back to his original topic. Originally I was planning on using Sasuke or Itachi to weaken or defeat you all to make you my hostages, but that seems unlikely now. Pity. Pity indeed, I murmured, sighing again. Man, I wanted to get kidnapped by him. Take us hostage? For what purpose? Mei demanded, scowling. To smoothly implement the aforementioned Moon's Eye plan. It's quite shocking to learn that Uchiha Madara is still alive, but why would a man of your skill resort to such a roundabout method? Oniki asked. Surely you have the strength to bring any plans into fruition. The injuries I sustained during my battle with the first Hokage Hashirama were too severe, Obito lied smoothly. I have no strength in me now. You could say I am merely a shell of my old self. Is this a plan to restore yourself? Temari asked. Obito hummed thoughtfully. You could say that. But that's not all. What are you scheming? Mifune demanded. Just what is the Moon's Eye plan? Obito cocked his head and held up a single, slender finger. He paused. All shall become one with me and result in a complete possession form that unites all. Become one? Unite all? What do you mean? Oniki asked. I could practically see Obito's smirk. The Uchiha have an ancient stone tablet that has been passed down through generations. It exists underground in Konoha. Upon it are written secrets, engraved by the Sage of Six Paths himself. It cannot be read unless you possess ocular powers. With the Sharingan, Mangekyo Sharingan, and Rinnegan, in that order, the contests become increasingly visible. Your story is unlikely. The Sage of Six Paths doesn't. It's the truth, Obito interrupted Oniki. He did exist and he left the stone tablet. Don't change the subject, I snarled. What does your plan have to do with the Sage of Six Paths? Do you know why he became a legendary and a godlike figure that is revered as a god of shinobi? There lies the link between my plan and this man. Uchiha Madara, you possess the Mangekyo Sharingan, and among the Akatsuki there was one who possessed the Rinnegan. You know everything already, don't you? Mei asked. We're listening. He once saved the world from a certain monster, Obito said. Gaara, you also have one part of that monster sealed inside of you. That monster was the combination of every Biju in existence. Something that possessed the most powerful chakra. The Jubi. Aren't there only 9 Biju? Temari asked. I just told you, Obito replied. It was the combination of all the Biju. Ichibei, Nibi, Sanbei, Yanbei, Gobei, Rokubai, Nanbai, Hachibei, Kyubi. The Jubi's chakra was simply divided up into the 9 Biju by the Sage of Six Paths. I don't like where this story is headed, Kankuro muttered. Is that why the Akatsuki are gathering Biju? The Sage of Six Paths developed a certain ninjutsu in order to protect the world from the Jubi. Even today that ninjutsu is still being secretly passed down. It is the sealing jutsu process for Jinchuriki. Yes, the Sage of Six Paths was the Jubi's Jinchuriki. In order to suppress it, he sealed the Jubi within his body. The sage, who saved a world terrorized by the Jubi, became a savior and won praise as a god. But if the sage died, the powerful and demonic chakra of the Jubi would once again be released unto the world. Fearing this, at the time of his death, the Sage of Six Paths summoned every last ounce of his power to partition the Jubi's chakra into 9 parts, and he scattered them across the world. Obito cocked his head. Then he sealed the Jubi's body, now devoid of chakra, and hurled it into the sky. And it became the moon. What a tall tale! As if a human could do such a thing. When he became Jinchuriki of the Jubi, the Sage of Six Paths went beyond the realm of humans. I understand now that you seek that inhuman power, Mifune said. By gathering the chakra of the 9, namely all, of the Biju. But what will you do with all that power? Revive the Jubi, Obito said. And I will become the Jubi's Jinchuriki. I will then use its power to strengthen my ocular powers and activate a certain jutsu. What jutsu? Tsunade narrowed her eyes. A super genjutsu where I project my eyes off the moon, Obito answered. The infinite Tsukuyomi. I will cast a genjutsu on every human that walks the earth. And in that genjutsu, I will control all humans and thus unify the world. A world without hatred or war. Everything will become one with me, everything will be united. That is the Moon's Eye plan. Stop joking around. I'm not handing the world over to you. I snarled at him. Peace that exists only as an illusion is deception, Gaara said. Peace is only meaningful when it is genuinely achieved in the real world. Like hell I'd let this pass, Tsunade firmly stated. What would exist in such a world? There is no hope, no dreams. It's just an escape, Mei said. Unite the world, huh? But instead of sounding like you truly want such a thing, it only sounds like you want to make the world yours, Oniki refuted. Obito chuckled. All this talk and yet what have you five Kage accomplished? You of all people should know by now, there is no such thing as hope. To hope is the equivalent to giving up, and it's the biggest deception of all. Turn over the remaining Ichibi, Hachibi, and Kyubi and cooperate with my plan. Or there will be war. War, you say? Gaara asked. So what? I glanced at me, what Sakura said earlier was true. He escaped. I paused for a moment before pure fury lit in his eyes. That idiot. He used that chance to slip away and now he's actually having the time of his life. Unforgivable. He's going to my Iron Claw. We will not hand any Jinchuriki, Gaara stated firmly. I agree with him, Mei said. It goes without saying what I agree with, Tsunade stated. There's no way I'll let him have my younger brother, I growled. I don't have the strength, but the Biju we've gathered so far do. You people have no chance of winning. We haven't given up hope, Gaara said. Very well. I hereby declare the start of the Fourth Great Shinobi War, Obito conceded. Fourth Great Shinobi War? Oniki asked incredulously. Are you mad? The next time we meet will be on the battlefield, for most of you anyway. See you soon, Sakura, Obito purred, standing up. At the end of his sentence, he dematerialized and was soon out of sight. When he was gone, Oniki dipped his head. What do we do now? I grinned at that. If that wasn't a blatant taunt that he was gonna kidnap me, I didn't know what was. Heck yeah. Rainbow Stick story, you will be mine. We have to form an allied shinobi force, Gaara said. It's the only way we can counter the power of 7 Biju. Let's form this alliance and settle this once and for all, I agreed. We cannot allow our last 3 remaining Biju to fall into his hands, Mei added on. I think it is imperative that our allied shinobi forces find the Kyubi and Hachibi Jinchuriki first and then place them into hiding. It went without saying that they couldn't put a Kage into hiding during war. He would be needed to lead his village, regardless of the fact that he was a target. However, we cannot even imagine the power Madara wields with the 7 he already has, Oniki said. Furthermore, he may possess a certain jutsu or a trump card for using the Biju. Otherwise he wouldn't have come on so strong. Perhaps it would be wise for the allied shinobi forces to plan on using the Hachibi and Kyubi as military weapons too. Absolutely not, Tsunade stated at the same time. Gaara said, that cannot happen. They exchanged a glance, and Tsunade dipped her head as encouragement for Gaara to continue. This is also a war to protect those two. There is a reason why Madara is waging war with just 7 Biju he has collected thus far. It is too difficult for Madara in his weakened state to capture the Hachibi and Kyubi, with or without the rest of the Akatsuki. Even if they had succeeded, he felt the risk was too great. That is why he may be hoping to lure the two to his side through the war. In any case, using the Hachibi and Kyubi for battle is not a wise strategy. I agree, Tsuan said. As do I, Mei followed. I also concur with the Kaze Kage, I chimed in. If we consider the worst-case scenario, it will be like offering the Hachibi or the Kyubi on silver platters. And besides, the Hachibi is my younger brother and military strength is a foreign concept to him. I can't predict what he'd do. He may just create more chaos on the battlefield. Tsunade snorted. Naruto would do the same, Gaara said. That's for sure, Kankuro agreed. I'll say, Tamari chuckled. I understand. Well then, Chuchikage, our aim will be to protect and confine the Hachibi and Kyubi, Mei said. Well then. Sakura, was it? I smiled. Yep. You said you know where Killer Bee is? I asked. I do. I chirped. He's learning from this sensei about rapping or something. Want me to show you now? I nodded his head, and I saluted. Then let's go, bosso. That's it for part 11. Thank you for watching and see you on the next video.